house on the edge of the woods.
Out here it's safe and peaceful.
A family alone.
Mom?
Yes, sweetheart?
Can you leave the door open a crack?
A favorite uncle who needed their help.
Things haven't been going so good for me since I got back, sis.
You could come stay with us.
But when they invited him in,
Think I better keep my eye on you.
they let in something they could never imagine or ever escape.
What's wrong with you?
Bad Moon. It doesn't have to be Halloween to be this scary.
In a world where podcasts reign supreme, two friends dare to ask, do you even movie? Hosted by filmmaker Henrqiue and movie aficionado David D. Neuer. Spoiler alert.
Well, hello, my dear listeners, whether you're human or lycanthrope. Welcome back to Do You Even Movie? I am, of course, your host, Henrqiue Couto, here with my good buddy and co-host, Double D, David Louis Denoyer.
Greetings.
And we have quite a treat.
Yes, we do. I have a lot of admiration for this film.
Admiration?
Yes.
Why?
Because it was one of those movies that it traumatized me at a young age. I've never told you the story.
Well, first of all,
yeah.
The film is Bad Moon from 1996.
Yes.
I mean, it happens to all guys sometimes.
I wasn't going to share the story just yet. I was just telling you.
Fire off prematurely.
Oh,
it happens to every guy. It happens to every guy. How old were you when you discovered this movie?
So I was probably either 6 or 7.
Okay, so post Yellow Belt.
Post Yellow Belt, yes. Thank you. Thank you for fucking bringing that up again. So
we appreciate everybody writing in with your Yellow Belt commentary, by the way.
Love it.
No, go on, Dave.
So I was single digits. It was like 6, 7, 8-ish, and I thought that I had turned on the TV for Dennis the Menace because I saw the kid from Dennis the Menace.
From the movie
Dennis
the Menace, yeah.
And then it was the scene, it was on cable, and then it was the scene when she catches up with him at the end, right before he morphs out and everything, and I was not prepared to watch that gentleman morph into the creature that he does.
It's morphin' time!
Oh my god. So, it was one of those movies that stuck with me at a young age, and I didn't find it until I think it was early 20s that I actually found it.
Early 1920s.
Early 1920s, you got it, yep.
Wow. Before there were even home video.
Before there was even home video.
Before the film was even made.
Before the film was even made, yes. And Prohibition hadn't ended yet either.
I don't think so, yeah. And I, not to speak out of turn, but I feel like some of the stuff going on in Europe's not so good.
No, probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not.
So,
what the fuck are we doing?
I don't know. You're the one who shows up for it.
Mm-hmm.
But so we're going to be talking about the 1996 werewolf film Bad Moon. And before we get into Bad Moon, would you call this the most underrated werewolf movie, or what would you say?
No, I would say this is absolutely one of the most underrated werewolf movies, because there's several. One I'll save for the end of the episode for recommendation. But I think this movie finally kind of got it to do when that Blu-ray got released. I think probably been like 5 or 6 years ago now.
Somewhere in that neighborhood, yeah.
Because it seemed like a lot of more people were discovering it and talking about it, and then also streaming services this past Halloween picked it up, and that's how I revisited it again. So I think this is a very underrated horror film, and also I think it's the perfect runtime as well. I
mean, it's definitely brisk.
Yes.
And it moves very quickly.
Yeah.
The thing that Bad Moon has going for it that makes it stand out is also what kind of damned it.
What's that?
it's expensive.
Yeah, no, it absolutely
It's a big, fat, expensive werewolf movie from 1996. And my first thought is, why?
Yeah.
I mean, no, and I enjoy it.
Yeah,
but,
no, I get that.
But there's that moment where it's like, who sat down and went, we could do well with werewolf movies, but what if we also spent like a lot of money? Like a lot of money. Do you know what the budget was?
$7 million, if I remember correctly.
That's a lot of money for a little movie.
Well, and then you had American Werewolf in Paris in 97, Bad Moon's 96, Wolf was 94, Howling 6, The Freaks was 91.
Finally, a real film.
And Project Metal Beast was 1995, one year before this.
We're cooking with gas.
So, I mean, werewolves were not
so what you're saying,
super popular, but
what you're saying is Bad Moon was usurping the afterwaves of Project Metal Beast.
I mean, Bad Moon is the latest of them because Werewolf in Paris is 97, so Bad Moon 96, Wolf 94. Yeah, so I mean, this is on the tail end of 90s werewolf movies.
Project Metal Beast. No, my point is just that for it to cost that much and be a Morgan Creek release, was an odd choice.
Absolutely.
And as we'll get into when we start talking about the film, it was troubled in many, many ways, including with the MPAA and the producers.
Yes, it was.
Who were meddling in the cut.
Yeah.
So that also plays into it as well. Because, kids, like a great poet once said, mo money, mo problems. But that's the truth,
No,
though.
it absolutely is.
People think I'm being cute because I'm quoting a rapper, but no, mo money, mo problems, kids. It is more problems if you spend more money.
Well, it's like I always think back to the production of Nothing But Trouble, and the reason that production was left alone and went so out of bounds was because they were also working on Bonfire of the Vanities at the same time, and that had the studio's direct attention, and they kind of let Dan Aykroyd do his own thing.
It was troubled.
Yeah, it was very troubled.
A big budget movie that was troubled, so nobody really paid attention to Aykroyd's picture.
And that's how a $4 million gross comedy got made.
It ended up costing more than that, didn't it?
Now I'm curious.
Oh,
let me
now,
check.
You should know this stuff off the top of your head.
Well, I'm sorry. I love Nothing
professional.
But Trouble, but I don't know the budget just off the top of my head right
That's
now.
bizarre.
I said right now.
Uh-huh.
$45 million.
Yeah, what? Where did you get $7 million?
I said $4 million.
$4 million.
Yeah.
Where'd you get that number from?
From the 45. I just forgot the 5 at the end of it.
That's how numbers work.
Box office $8.4 million.
Honestly, that's
$45 million budget gross comedy.
Yeah.
Nothing But Trouble coming to the show soon. Don't worry.
Oh, is it?
It is.
Okay. But so for me, Bad Moon was not a staple of childhood or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was on cable.
Yeah, I play cable a lot.
When I was a kid, and I caught bits and pieces of it. And what always stuck out to me was the tone was very creepy because it was very well done.
Yeah.
And that's actually, I think that's one of the reasons the movie stands out is because the tone is so strong because it has a very strong cast.
Yeah. And small cast too. The simplicity
it is a tiny
of it
cast.
really works.
Yeah. Michael Pare and Mariel Hemingway, both very, very talented actors.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what always stood out the most was that I felt the most out of ease.
Yeah.
Because they're very good.
Oh, absolutely.
And in that way, the high budget helped because they had name actors and they probably, they took their time building on the whole thing. But I just remember thinking like, oh, this is kind of like in the realm of werewolf movies, one of the more cerebral ones.
Absolutely.
But that's as a kid.
Yeah.
As an adult, I just kind of hunted it down because first of all, for forever, I got this and Silver Bullet confused.
I could see that. Yeah, I definitely see that.
So for a really long time, I'd be like, oh man, I want to watch Silver Bullet. And then I'd watch it like, wow, that was great. But that was not the movie I was thinking
Gary
of.
Busey was there, but...
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm never going to be mad about Unexpected Busey. But...
I still can't believe last week, Little Giants, Gary Busey and Randy Quaid as the two leads. That movie is so different.
That would be a very different movie.
Oh my God.
But... That being said, I always thought it was pretty good. And then when the Blu-ray came out, I got to really revisit it. And I enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think it's one of those movies that when I find people that haven't seen it, I'm super excited to show it to them. And 90% of the time, I've shown this movie to like 3 people like in the last like 4 years that I can think of. and everybody has usually gone through the roof about it. And like, how did I never see this? And I'm happy that it's finally getting its due via streaming services and releases and whatnot. It seems like it is picking up some more steam.
I mean, it's definitely been talked about more than ever before.
Absolutely.
Well, then give us the deets on Bad Moon.
Pertinent details. Our director of this film is Eric Red. This gentleman starts as a writer in 1986 with The Hitcher. Yes, the Rutger Hauer movie. He wrote that.
Yes. No, Eric Red, if I remember correctly, has a much more prolific writing career.
Yeah, so he does The Hitcher in 1986, then is the writer of Near Dark in 1987.
Wow.
Then he goes on to both write and direct Cohen and Tate in 1988, which is a action film that is Roy Scheider and I think Adam Baldwin, if I'm not mistaken.
How have you never brought that over to watch?
Because I don't have it. I used to have a VHS of it. And Shout, I think, put out a Blu-ray of it some time ago, but I think it's way out of print now. It's okay. Basically, the story...
Wow, hateful.
It's a good story. The story is Schreider and Baldwin play two assassins that are sent out to basically kill this witness that turns out to be a kid of this like mob happening. They murder his family, take the kid away, and the rest of the movie is the kid watching them two turn against each other.
Okay.
It's pretty good.
I mean, well, you just downsold it, and now you've upsold it.
I mean, I expected more the first time I watched it. I would absolutely give it a revisit.
What were you expecting?
Like a straight up action movie, I guess. The cover, I mean, the cover's ridiculous. I'll show you the cover at the show. So he does Cohen and Tate in 1988. Then he does Blue Steel, the Jamie Lee Curtis cop thriller in 1990, which he's the writer of.
Blue Steel.
I love Blue Steel. Body Parts in 1991, which he is both the screenplay credit as well as the director of. Have you seen Body Parts with Jeff Fahey?
I have seen Body Parts. That's a really good one.
Do you remember like one of the most craziest scenes in the movie? I mean, the movie's full of crazy scenes, but where the killer goes after Brad Dourif's character because he's had both arms like replaced with like amputees, and he's hanging on this ledge, and he just undoes the straps and watches Brad Dourif fall, and then takes his arms.
I need to revisit Body Parts.
Nuts.
That's a great one.
Then he does The Last Outlaw in 93, which he's the writer of. Undertow in 1996, which he's the writer of, director of. Bad Moon 96 the same year, screenplay and director. Then he gets credit for characters in The Hitcher 2, I've Been Waiting in 2003. Credit again for the screenplay, the 2007 remake of The Hitcher. He does 100 Feet in 2008, which he's the writer and director of, and then Night of the Wild in 2015, which he directs.
I don't think I've seen either of those last two.
I haven't seen either of them, and actually, Michael Pare comes back for 100 Feet. He's actually credited on that too, so he got to work with him again. So our writer on this, we have two. We have Wayne Smith, who was the author of the novel Thor, which is what Bad Moon is based off of, and then Eric Red wrote the screenplay for the film as well.
I think it's pronounced Tor.
Tor? Are you Tor?
Tor.
But no, Thor was a horror novel that came out, I want to say, in 82. And unfortunately, at the recording of this, I have not managed to get a copy of it yet, but there is some differences with the novel that I'll get to when we get into the facts.
And I thought you were dedicated to the show.
I want to get a copy of Thor, but the cheapest one that I can find is between $40 and $50.
I thought you were dedicated to the show.
I don't pay that much for books.
Well... That's because when you buy a book, you know you're not going to read it.
That's very true. I mean, that's as I sit here right now, I'm thinking of all the horror novels that are sitting on my shelf at home that I have had for 10 years plus that I haven't read yet. So.
Oh, well, sorry, pal.
Moving down the list, we're going to get to our cinematographer, which is Jan Kieser. He starts as a first assistant camera in 1972 with Premonition, then is the assistant camera on Idaho Transfer in 73. He's the second unit on Jackson County Jail in 1976.
A Corman classic.
Yep. Then does One by One in 77, The Gauntlet in 77, Elvis in 79, The Rose in 79, Roadie in 1980, Heaven's Gate in 80, Blowout in 81.
Wait, he worked on Heaven's Gate?
Yeah.
The tragedy movie?
Yeah. So then he becomes a cinematographer in 1983 with Return Engagement. Then he does Purple Hearts in 1984, Choose Me in 84 as well. Then he does the Eurythmics video for Would I Lie to You in 1985. And then in 1985, he does a little film called Fright Night.
Wow.
He is the cinematographer of Fright Night.
Fright Night.
Goes from Fright Night to Some Kind of Wonderful, the John Hughes film in 1987, Made in Heaven in 1987, Clean and Sober 1988.
Oh, yeah.
I love Clean and Sober.
Didn't I get you that poster?
You did.
Yeah, I'm a good
it hangs
dude.
in my hallway
I'm
in my
a good
apartment.
dude.
Now, Clean and Sober, for those who are not familiar with it, one of Michael Keaton's underrated 80s films, he plays an addict who is going through sobriety and cleansing of drugs, and Morgan Freeman is the head of the unit that he's in. He tries to make friends. He tries to clean up his life. Really good movie, really sad, but really a underrated performance by Keaton.
Well, in the 80s, he was in like 5 movies a year.
Yeah, no, he was
it's crazy how
80s.
many Keaton starring vehicles I've discovered just because you have a crush on him.
Yes, I do. Desperate Measures in the 90s. That is a great Keaton movie.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. So then he does Dad in 1989, V.R. Wachowski in 1991, Georgia in 95, The Adventures of Captain Zoom in Outer Space in 1995, then does Bad Moon in 96, goes on to get a TV movie career with The Perfect Mother in 97, Murder on My Mind in 97, Nightmare Street in 98, does a film called Bruno in 2000, then Dr. T and the Women in 2000.
Bruno, not Bruno.
Not that Bruno. Not that Bruno.
Not
I
Sacha
wish.
Baron Cohen's Bruno.
Not that one, no.
Okay.
Not the talking penis Bruno, no.
I just wanted to make sure.
Rare Birds 2001, Now and Forever 2002, Reefer Madness the movie musical in 2002 as well.
I remember that was the thing.
And then, or 2005, he does Beowulf and Grendel in 2005, Fido in 2006.
I never liked Fido.
I know, and I don't understand that.
I think it's kind of stupid.
You need to revisit Fido. Fido's great.
I think I'll like it. I just didn't like. I got why everybody else liked it. I just didn't think it was anything special. I was so tired of zombies by the time that came out.
That's fair. It was.
Also, they got really lazy. Like there were a couple of times where the makeup was like falling off the guy, and they still like. It's like you guys got money.
You need to revisit
Glue
Fido.
his face.
We're making Fido probably a Friday night movie soon.
Great.
Love at First Kill 2008, The Thaw 2009, Christmas Story 2 2012.
Oh,
Yeah.
the real Christmas Story.
The direct-to-video Daniel Stern as the father. Falling Skies 2015, The Flash series 2016, and then does Christmas Princess in 2017. While this is going on, though, with the cinematographer career, he also works on films such as Something Wicked This Way Comes in 83, Meatballs 80.
How and to what capacity?
He is the assistant camera operator. He had a bunch of different titles throughout.
Just want to understand.
Yeah. Then does he's uncredited on Starman in 1984, Weird Science 85, Larger Than Life 1996, The X-Files 1998, Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift 86 or 06, Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief 2010. So he's been working this entire time doing a bunch of camera stuff in regards to operation, second assistant, second unit, and also cinematographer on this whole time.
On this whole time?
And during this whole time. Shut up.
Hey, David.
What?
Say lycanthropy.
Lycanthropy.
How'd you say it fine now? During the movie, he couldn't say it to save his damn life.
Lycanthropy.
The pressure is supposed to make you worse, not better.
Too bad. IMDb synopsis says, after being bitten by a werewolf in the jungle, Ted looks for a cure. His lawyer's sister with a son and dog invites him to park his camper by her house in the woods and live out of her fridge. That's the IMDb synopsis.
And live out of her fridge.
My synopsis, after his owner's brother comes to stay with her and her son, Thor, the family dog, starts to suspect that Ted is hiding a deadly secret that may put them all in jeopardy if Thor doesn't defend his pack.
The problem with your synopsis
Go ahead.
is it's too gentle. It's a werewolf movie. It should be after becoming a fucking werewolf with swears in it.
Swears in it. Okay. Yeah.
No, but it should be like after becoming a werewolf. You'd probably be mentioned in there. Because right now it sounds like a Lifetime movie where it's like, her brother is evil, but the dog is ready to defend them.
So moving on down, we have our cast, which is Mariel Hemingway, who plays Janet. She started in Lipstick in 1976, does Manhattan in 1979, Personal Best in 1982, Star 80, the Dorothy Stratton story in 1983, The Mean Season 85, Superman 4, The Quest for Peace in 87.
The best of the Superman films.
No, it is not, but okay.
Of all time.
The Suicide Club in 87, Sunset 88, Tales from the Crypt episode in 91, Delirious in 91, Falling from Grace in 92, Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult in 1994, where she plays herself, mind you.
Oh, really?
At the Oscars scene.
Oh, yeah. I love those movies.
Deceptions 2, Edge of Deception in 1994, Roseanne in 94, CPW 95, Bad Moon 96, Deconstructing Harry 97, Little Men, Kiss of a Stranger, The Sex Monster, The Contender, Perfume, Becker, First Shot, Crossing Jordan, See Arnold Run, In Her Line of Fire, The Golden Boys, 11th Hour, Rise of the Zombies, Lap Dance, Finding Fortune, On Sacred Ground, and just last year, God's Country Song in 2023.
The hell's Rise of the Zombies?
It is that Danny Trejo sci-fi movie that came out in 2012.
I did see, she was in that?
She was in that, apparently.
Remember her in it.
She's in it.
Okay.
Moving on down the list, we have Michael Pare, which 213 credits, by the way.
Yeah, oh yeah, he's been working for forever.
Actor.
He's done a couple of movies for my buddy Brett.
Yeah, I think I have a couple on here. So Crazy Times in 1981 is his start. Then he goes on to be in The Greatest American Hero in 1981. Completely kills it in Eddie and the Cruisers in 1983. Goes on to do Streets of Fire in 1984. The Philadelphia Experiment in 84. Space Rage. World Gone Wild. Eddie and the Cruisers 2. Eddie Lives in 89. The Closer. Into the Sun. Lunar Cop. You ever seen Lunar Cop?
No, I want to.
God, dude. I used to have a VHS tape of it back in the day.
I adore the era in the late 80s and early 90s where you could just put anything before cop.
Cop, yeah.
That brought us such charms as Psycho Cop, Maniac Cop,
Scanner Cop,
Cyborg Cop, Scanner Cop, which is, of course, one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
But I just love that it was like, we'll just put this before cop.
Wolf Cop.
There's so many of those name before cop movies. Cyborg Cop was a really ridiculous one, and some of them like would spawn out like 5 sequels.
I think Wynorski alone has done like 3 of them, I want to say.
Well, he did Busty Cops and stuff, but that was in the 2000s.
That's true though, but
I don't think he did any of the cop movies.
I thought he did. Maybe I'm thinking of somebody else though. I have to check. Village of the Damned in 1995, Bad Moon in 96, Merchant of Death 97, Hope Floats in 1998, Virgin Suicides 99, Heart of America, Red Serpent, Gargoyle, Blood Rain, Seed, Postal 2007.
Oh, she was in Postal?
Michael was. Yeah, Michael Pare was.
Oh, not she. Yeah, Michael. And I believe that. Man, my brain got lost for a second.
Rampage 2009. I forgot he plays a cop in Rampage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Rampage is so good. The first one.
No, Rampage is super good.
Yeah. Lincoln Lawyer in 2011, House 2011, Leverage, Gone, Assault on Wall Street.
For the record, so because my brain got all mixed for a second, Gargoyle's a Jim Wynorski movie.
Yeah, I recognized the cover and I thought that was Jim's. Checkmate 2015, Bone Tomahawk 2015, The Infiltrator 2016, American Violence, Gangsterland, Puppet Master Littlest Reich in 2018.
Yeah, he's a working guy.
City of Lies, Hollow Point, The Penthouse, Deceived by My Mother-in-Law, Mommy's Deadly Con Artist, Christmas Collision 2021, Kings of LA 2023, The Puppet Man 2023, and just this year alone he has like 5 upcoming projects too.
Yeah, he's definitely a B-movie stalwart.
Yeah. And then finishing us out is Mason Gamble, who plays Brett. He was in Dennis the Menace in 1993, Spy Hard in 96, Bad Moon in 96, Early Edition in 96, ER in 97, Gattaca in 97, Rushmore in 98, Arlington Road in 99, Anya's Bell in 99, Kate Brasher in 2001, A Gentleman's Game in 02, Close to Home in 05, CSI Miami, Golf and Kingdom. And as of 2016, he has quit acting, of course, doctoral candidate in environmental science and engineering at the Institute of Environment and Sustainability at UCLA.
So he just accrued a bunch of useless student debt.
I mean, apparently.
Rock and roll, kid. Rock and roll.
So at this recording, we are happy to report that Bad Moon is available across streaming services, so you should not have any problem finding it. What was your first time seeing Bad Moon?
Well, on cable when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And then I hunted it down, like I said, years later when I finally figured out what the title was because I got confused that it was Silver Bullet.
Yeah.
So I probably saw it all the way through for the first time in my early 20s.
That was me too. Yeah.
And but I never really got to fully watch it until the Blu-ray came out.
I got to
really watch it.
Yeah, I got to really see it when I picked up a 4-pack that was Bad Moon, Body Snatchers, Coma, and Wolfen. That was a collection from Warner Brothers, and it was a 4-film pack. I was going through it, and when I got to Bad Moon, I was like, holy shit, this is that movie that I'd been looking for ever. And I was just blown away by how much fun it was and the simplicity of it, too.
It is a fun movie. It is a bizarrely simple movie.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
not a lot of slashing or anything. It just... but its pace always felt very intentional.
Yeah, no, it absolutely. And I think what makes it work even more so than the simplicity of it is the fact that you really do care about these characters, because the fact that we have
I don't.
Technically, 3 main characters basically. You don't count the dog.
You have to count the dog.
Okay, 4 main characters.
Because the dog is so important to the movie's plot.
I know.
I'm not just saying that as a dog guy.
Yeah.
I mean, the dog is really important to the film's plot.
So, you ready to get into this movie?
No.
Too bad.
Damn.
So we open with a beautiful jungle shot as we find out we're in Nepal as we pan down onto a camp of scientists and some tribal leaders, and we meet Ted, who's talking over plans with his girlfriend Marjorie, and they are discussing what their plan's going to be for the next day, what it's going to be for the next several months, like they're going to Egypt, and they're going to, where's the other place he said? I can't remember. But they're basically laying out their plans, and Marjorie wants him to join her in the tent. So they make their way to the tent.
In order to... Aardvark.
Aardvark, yes. Aardvarking is a great way to put it. So they start having sex, and we see the horses around the camp getting spooked, and we see a POV from something that's looking in from the forest on in the camp. Suddenly, a creature descends upon the camp, and we see one of the tribal people get murdered before, and then inside the tent, while they're going at it still, A large shadow appears behind Marjorie, and suddenly Ted starts freaking out, but she is the tent slashed in, and she's pulled through the tent, and we see a giant werewolf now is outside the tent.
And mauling her to death.
To death.
It's brutal.
Yeah, because Ted actually goes out to try and fight it off. He gets
you
slashed.
didn't even mention we're watching the director's cut.
Oh, yes. Well, we'll get there when we get there.
But we are watching the director's cut.
Yes, but the only thing different is the transformation scene.
That's all that's different?
That's all that's different.
Oh, then I like the theatrical cut more.
Shut up.
Oh, Dave's gonna be so mad.
I hate the. I don't. We'll get there.
So
Ted gets scratched by the creature. It gets thrown to the ground, and like Henrqiue said, this thing is just mauling Marjorie. It bites her head, and then suddenly Ted makes his way over to a shotgun and blows the creature's head off, and that is the opening of Bad Moon.
I don't buy that 12 gauge shotgun would blow that werewolf's head clean off like that.
Yeah, probably not.
That's all I got.
Yeah, because we see the impact of the head just go.
No, it is like melon meat, shotgun slug.
This movie is not shy on its gore. I mean, that's for sure. I mean, the remains we see, especially.
The stuff, well, yeah, that's true, and the effects are excellent. And they take a different direction. They don't really follow werewolf lore. They kind of do the whole thing where they're like, well, yeah, that's what they say in movies, but real werewolves are this way. Which does allow it to feel a little fresher.
Absolutely does. I mean, I think, honestly, the fact that they have that scene of them talking about the lore and completely break it apart, but also he's aware of it, but he's also the monster that we're going after, in a sense.
Well, yeah.
So we pan over more forest, and we come across a young boy who's in the yard. This is Brett playing with his dog Thor, who's a German Shepherd. They're playing ball in the yard as a man in a suit starts walking around the corner carrying a briefcase, and he approaches the house. The man comments on Thor's size, making jokes about, is that a horse or a dog? And Brett's like, it's a dog. It's a German Shepherd, you idiot.
Yeah, that kid has no chill.
So Janet, his mom, comes out of the house, and we see that the man starts to pitch that he has educational books for sale, but something's off about this guy as he holds up his briefcase and does it in a way that really gets Thor going.
He's making sudden, loud movements, which is pissing the dog off.
Janet tries to wave him off, but the gentleman starts instigating Thor, causing Thor to run at him, knocking him to the ground, and that's when he claims that Thor bit him, and, you better get a lawyer, lady, like you got to take care of this dog and everything, and that's when she bends down, hands him a business card, and she's like, here, call me. I'm a lawyer.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome serve.
Yeah.
Because he's clearly a con artist. Did you mention, after the dog first gets mad, the second they look away, he raises his hand up. Which, if a dog is trained at all, they take that as a threat. So he's got a whole scam.
Yeah.
And the mom just clocked him a million miles away. She's like a con artist who pretend to get hit by cars or hit by dogs.
A flopsy.
A flopsy. That's the word she used for him. And I love that. And then she reveals a little bit about her backstory because she says, I used to prosecute them all the time.
Yep.
And that's when we start to get the hint of what will be revealed later, that she's from Chicago originally. Now she's in what appears to me to be the Pacific Northwest or Northern California. And, but she mentions that she was a prosecutor in Chicago.
Yep.
So that means she put lots of innocent minorities in prison.
Oh my God.
It's called subtext, David. It's called subtext.
So she's giving him shit, calling him a flopsy, basically explaining to Brett what he does, and that, that she offers to drive him to the family doctor, seeing through to him because the whole time he's like, I've been bit, and he's holding his hand in his coat, not showing her anything. And we also forgot to mention, too, that she commands Thor to, back away from him, lay down, and Thor does. So Thor is a pretty well-trained dog.
It's a very obedient German Shepherd. And the reason she's saying, I'll take you to the doctor myself is because part of that scam would be going to either a fake physician, pretending you go to a doctor, or going to a crooked doctor to get a note that you could scare somebody with. Because the whole point would be to never go to court. It'd be to get somebody to settle because they're so afraid of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And he clocked them just from having a big, beautiful house.
Yep.
Alone. I do love that line where he goes what about, haven't you ever heard of leash laws? I'm like, that's their front yard.
You approach the house and you get mauled up.
You're in their front yard.
So the Flopsy states that she hasn't seen the last of him and that he'll be back, and Janet tells him a valuable lesson not to mess with a lawyer on her own turf as he leaves.
I was waiting for him because I like this movie quite a bit, but there are moments that the writing's a little weak.
Yeah.
And some of that could have been meddling from producers, but when he says, I'll be back, I felt like he may as well say, once the werewolf's around, so I can get killed. I'll be back. And
spoiler alert.
Yeah, no shit.
He sure does.
So later that night, Thor makes his way into Brett's room. We see Thor kind of moving around the house. He goes into Brett's room, grabs a stuffed animal, places it next to him, and also gives Brett a kiss. He then goes to Janet's room, and she's like, good night, Thor. And like he sits there for a second and then leaves. So he has this like patrol through the house.
Yeah, he goes through the house, confirms that everybody's okay, and then he lays down in the middle of the living room by the front door and sleeps where he can access it. So funny story, I don't have German Shepherds or anything, but when I first got Henrqiue, when the first time I got really, really sick, like I was in bed for days, she started sleeping in the end of the hallway instead of in my room. And I was literally like, dude, I think she's like, he can't protect himself. So I gotta...
She a good dog.
She's pretty good. She's pretty good.
So out in the forest, we see a worker checking tree sizes and trunks, and he starts to hear some growls in the area.
I love how mad you were. You were like, what is he, a fireman? And I was like,
I couldn't tell what he was. I didn't know what to write.
He's a forestry worker.
And he starts hearing some growls. He looks around and he like leans against a tree and he looks up the tree and he is immediately terrorized and he starts to sprint in fear. He gets to one other side of the tree, takes refuge on it, looks up, and him to see a werewolf just jump down and munch on his head as blood sprays everywhere.
Yeah, that wolf bites right through his safety helmet.
Yes, it does.
OSHA, you gotta upgrade the helmets to consider lycanthropy.
Defense against werewolves.
Yes.
So the next morning, Janet gets a call from her brother Ted, who tells her that he's back in the area and invites Brett and her out to the lake. They drive out, and we see Thor in the front seat as Brett's in the back, and Thor's just got his head out the window enjoying the ride as they're going along this little road along the lake. And you were even commenting about how you would hate to be the helicopter.
Yeah, because it's a dirt road in between trees, and as they're shooting this helicopter shot, you just barely see the car here and there. I was like, God, that would suck to have to arrange that in the helicopter.
So they arrive at the lake, and that's where they find Ted living in a large camper. Ted embraces Janice and Brett and even Thor, and Ted invites him into the camper, and Thor picks up a scent, and he starts sniffing on the outside of the forest before he picks up another scent and goes into the forest. Ted asks Janet about things, and she comments that it's adjusting to a small town has been a lot easier for her than it has Brett. He has no friends, and she's a little worried about him. And he tells her how happy he is, and Janet senses that there's something off with him. He's not telling her everything. And he mentions that Marjorie left him and went to Seattle. And in the camper, Brett finds a book on the lore of werewolves and begins flipping through it.
Which is a very subtle, not showing your hand at all, just leaving that out.
Not at all. Back in the forest.
I need to get that exact book and just leave it on my coffee table.
I'm surprised you don't have it already.
So for 4 years, I kept a copy of Bad as I Want to Be by Dennis Rodman on my coffee table.
You did.
So that people would always see it.
Didn't you pay like 98 cents for that?
I bet it was less.
You think it was less? Oh my God. So in the forest, Thor finds the remains of the worker, and they are scattered up this tree. Like he comes to this tree, and there's some clothes on the ground, and then as we pan up the tree, there's just a limb, a torso, shredded clothing, blood.
Well, there's usually limbs in trees.
God damn it! I knew you were going to say that.
I mean, that part's not so shocking.
And it's just it's a pretty graphic scene.
It's shocking.
Yeah. So he's nervous about Ted as he makes his way back to the camper, and he's slow to approach him because inside the camper, like Ted's like, trying to get him back over, and Thor's just a little unsure, and Ted's like, come here, boy, and he goes up to him and licks him and then whines a little bit. And that's when Ted comments on, knows an old dog when he sees one.
Yeah, he makes a lot of references to the idea like that he's just some like old dog and just a lone wolf running around. And fun with metaphors.
So Ted goes to wish them a good night. He says he's got to get to bed and they've got a long drive ahead. But Janet invites him to come stay in their backyard. But he says, maybe later, not right now. They leave, and the next day, Ted calls Janet crying, and he says that he appreciated the trip, and he states, family's the most important thing. It's all we've got. And she can just hear that there's something wrong in his tone, and that's when they cut back to Ted in his camper as he's speaking out, and we see that the cops are everywhere.
Yeah, the body's been found.
Yeah.
So, but you made a really good point when we were watching. You were like, he'd be the first suspect, and I was like, well, he has no priors.
Yeah.
He's just a guy who camps.
Yeah.
And also, it's clearly an animal attack.
Yeah.
like it does. They're not like, well, this is either a wild animal or a man with a lot of knives on his arms.
So Janet asks if there's a problem, and we see, like I said, the police have arrived. They're taping off the area. Janet invites him once again to come stay, and Ted accepts this time. So she tells him he can come and go as he pleases. As we see, he's parked in the backyard behind the house, and they're embracing each other, talking about how great this is. She says, do whatever you want as long as you follow my rules. And apparently live out of my fridge.
And live out of his fridge. I mean, I guess that's a saying. I mean, he does take food from their house.
He does. So later that night, we see Thor watching Ted with concern. He begins barking, getting Janet's attention. As she goes downstairs, she sees him going crazy, and she's like, "You want to go outside?" So she lets him outside and chore. Thor charges Ted's camper, and we see also that it's a full moon, and Thor makes his way through the forest, coming upon a werewolf handcuffed to a tree and just kind of freaking out as it looks over at him, growls. Thor growls back, but then Janet calls for the dog, and eventually Thor's back home. She pulls him back as he's resisting because he's like, you don't want to go this way. Like, I got to go protect you. She's like, no, come home, come on, and drags him back home.
She's like, I get it. You smelled a squirrel or something. Let's go to bed.
So the next morning, Janet prepares breakfast as we see Thor and Brett outside as Brett tries to get him to play ball, but Thor goes over and pees on Ted's camper, marking his territory.
Yeah, good boy.
Inside, news breaks talking about a curfew that is in effect in Timberland, which is where Ted was at, as a fifth murder has now taken place with a family of 3 that was attacked as what appears to be a wild animal, possibly a grizzly bear.
Well, I mean, they're in the right part of the country for grizzly bears.
That they are.
Probably.
They
kind of keep it ambiguous as to where they are.
we didn't look at the license plates super hard, so I guess we could have done that.
I mean, I didn't notice any clear to view license plates.
Good point. We see Ted exit the camper and noticing that Thor noticing that Thor has marked his territory. Brett takes Thor inside, and Janet asks him, why didn't she tell him about Timberline and the curfew? Like, I guess, and, why didn't you say anything? He's like, oh, I meant to, but I just got distracted. And she's like, well, I guess you can't go back until the curfew's lifted at this point.
Yeah, which... yeah.
So Ted goes to say he was going to tell her about that, but Thor stops him, growling at Ted, and tells him, all in good time, good boy, all in good time. So they're already kind of having
he knows that eventually Thor is going to go for him.
Yeah.
Because Thor senses what a threat he is. So he knows that it's going to go down.
Yeah. So inside the house, Werewolf of London is on the TV, and Ted walks in as a transformation scene is taking place with the man turning into a werewolf, which makes him laugh. And Brett's like, why are you laughing? It's not funny.
And he's like, sure it is. See how his pants stay on? In reality, his wiener would be all over the place.
Oh, God.
What? You didn't say that?
No, he did not say that.
He did say that.
He did not. They get into a debate basically about what it takes to kill a werewolf, and Brett says the thing about silver bullets, and they also talk about the moon.
Yeah, so basically, we get a revelation that in this reality of werewolves, silver bullets don't matter.
Nope.
A werewolf is not impossible to kill.
Yeah.
He even makes reference to the fact that he killed one with a shotgun. He says, I think blowing its head off with a shotgun would do it.
Yeah.
But he also mentions that it's not a full moon.
Nope.
And surprisingly, not a bad moon.
Not a bad moon either.
But any moon.
Any moon.
They didn't really explain if that means that he gets a break on the couple of new moons.
So the only thing that I can think in regards of movie-wise that kind of compares to this setup of the lore is American Werewolf in Paris. If I remember correctly, they inject themselves during a full moon to turn into the wolves. Like there's an actual serum or something like that.
That movie's dumb.
I hate that movie. I was not a fan of that movie.
I was such a not fan when it came out. A movie stinks out loud when you're like 13 and you're like, this sucks.
Yeah.
Like when I saw Dracula 2000 in the theater, I was like 11.
Did you see that's getting a 4K release from Shout?
You hear that barrel scraping? They're gonna run out. They're gonna start having to go through multiverses to where other movies got made that didn't hear.
Oh my God.
In order to keep the release slate up. But
I would like to revisit Dracula 2000. I mean, I remember it not being good, but I wouldn't mind checking it out again. At least all 3.
I only watched the 1. Well, no, if you want to know how bad of an experience it was watching Dracula 2000 in the theater for me, I was like 11 or 12. And when I walked out, I was like, that sucked. And I'm not kidding. I'm being dead serious. That was when my brain went, wow, bad movies can be in the theater too.
Yeah.
At the time, I knew about renting a random movie.
Yeah.
And I assumed that bad movies were the product of direct-to-video, were the product of like Blockbuster, not the movie cinema.
Yeah.
And after I walked out, I was like, wow, I guess crap movies are in the movie theater too. But I don't mean it like, I wasn't like being some edgelord.
Yeah.
I literally had the thought like, added to knowledge, bad movies in theaters too.
Whenever I think of bad movies in theaters, I just think of what your mom said after Halloween Resurrection, where she was like, that wasn't very good. And you were like, no, it wasn't.
Yeah, my mom was just like, I don't think that was very good. I was like, it was not. No. My mom sitting in the fifth row of the theater while I'm in the second row watching Halloween Resurrection because they wouldn't let me go in by myself. I mean, I was like 14 or something. But so she sat there under the light of the projector doing her schoolwork while I watched the movie.
That's awesome.
You know.
Well, at least your mom went in. So, like, I got tickets for Inglourious Bastards, the Tarantino movie, when it was coming out. And
I didn't think it was the 1970s exploitation movie.
I mean, Andy would have showed something like that.
That's true.
Yeah. But I got the tickets because I was 18 years old at the time. Xander, I think, was either 17 or 16, and they wouldn't let him in with me. So I called Dad.
Did you explain that you were lovers?
I guess I could have.
That would have helped.
But I called Dad, and I was like, "You want to come in and see this movie?" And he's like, "No." Like, just flat out, like,
nope.
No, like either you go see it or like both get in the car or I'm just gonna leave. Like we drove there. Like he didn't even have to come. I called him to see if he would just go to the movie so we could go, and he was like, "No, not interested." That's my father.
Well, for the record, you were an adult.
I mean, I was still in high school.
Well, I mean, and it's questionable if you're an adult even now, but my mother did those things. I mean, I'm not just discounting my mother's kindness and generosity, but I was a literal kid.
Yeah.
Like I was a literal child, and it would have been a huge bummer to miss Freddy vs. Jason and Halloween Resurrection because they wouldn't let us in.
I mean, one of my best theatrical experiences as a young kid seeing an R-rated movie was My Bloody Valentine 3D opening night in full 3D.
I got you beat.
Oh, what you got?
I'm not kidding. I'm not like saying this to beat you. I saw My Bloody Valentine on a preview screening a week before it opened.
No shit. How'd that happen?
One of my wrestling buddies had an extra ticket.
Okay.
And he was like, "Yo, man, I know you love horror movies. You want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah." So we went, and I remember I was probably 18 or 19.
Mm-hmm.
I was 18. And I remember I was so annoying. I mean, I'm still annoying, but I was annoying then too. And I put on my 3D glasses because like this was a preview screening, so like people came out and talked, and so I put them on. And when the usher walked up to say like, "Okay, everybody, here's how this is going to work" or whatever, I just went, "Whoa! It's like he's right in front of me."
Did everybody laugh?
No one laughed.
Oh man,
which was even better.
That is better
because I was right. Don't care.
So Ted asked Janet about last night, and she tells him about Thor's fit. Ted tries to advise against letting Brett play outside until the creature is found, and he also says, Thor, too, you may want to keep him near the house.
Yeah, well, he suggests that maybe the wild animal that attacked where he was staying, that when they run out of food, they'll travel sometimes very, very far.
Yeah.
So he was saying, like, maybe you should just kind of pretend that it's already here. And keep your kid and keep Thor in the house, whenever you can.
Because they don't establish where Timberline is compared to the house, but we do understand that it's at least like a 2-hour car ride, basically.
Well, but here's the thing, City Boy.
What?
No, it's a 2-hour drive, and at least half of it's dirt road.
Dirt road,
So that doesn't mean it has to be very far.
Yeah.
Because on a dirt road, you can only go depends on the road, but 30 to 40 miles per hour.
Good point.
You're not going 65, so it could be only, as the crow flies 60 miles away, but if it's remote enough, it's going to take a while to get there.
Is that the Brandon Lee crow or the Skarsgård crow that everybody loves right now?
Eddie Furlong, the only crow.
Jesus. So,
Dave, how do you feel about everybody's reaction to the crow?
You want me to sidebar on this? Because I could absolutely do it.
Please, no, David.
Oh, God.
I mean, if you really want this is our show. You can.
I'm gonna take
grievances.
I'm gonna take a second then and just say.
Oh no!
Recently, there has been some screen grabs from the new Crow movie that Bill Skarsgård is starring in that have dropped.
Screen grabs is a strong word. I would call them thirst traps.
Thirst traps. And a lot of people are commenting on
Machine Gun Crow,
his appearance and the overall look of it and everything in regards to like being like Jared Leto's Joker. And I understand where people are coming from, but also I just really do not like how quick people are to close their mind to something without even having seen a trailer or anything yet. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't love the look either, but at the same time, this movie has been in the making for 20 years.
That's not impressive.
No, but I mean, we've gone through Bradley Cooper as the Crow option. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was option at one point. Jason Momoa was option at one point.
I'm the Crow. I'm the size of a doorway. It can't rain all the time.
Brother.
I don't think he says brother.
I don't know. All I know is I really like his villain in Fast X, and I'm really
he's good.
wanting that second one to come out. But anyway, back to it.
No, but hold on. It looks stupid.
I'm not saying it doesn't, but at the same time, too, like everybody went fucking crazy over it. And
because he looked stupid, David.
They started comparing it to Sonic the Hedgehog, how they think they're going to be able to change the movie, and I don't think that's going to happen.
They might actually.
I don't know.
Oh, you're right. Because as of right now in 2024, while we're recording this, studios are doing great. There are no flops. No big budget flops happening.
I don't think they're going to change it. I'm just going to say that now. I don't think they're going to change it.
I mean, he literally looks like a guy that you try not to make eye contact with at the gas station.
I'm sorry, but in an era of everybody loving Post Malone and Adam Levine and
everybody loving Post
Pete
Malone?
Davidson, dude, yeah, a lot of people are crazy about those guys.
But what you're forgetting is those are young people who don't watch movies.
At the same time, though, that look makes absolute sense to what a lot of people are attracted to right now, is my point.
Speak for yourself alone.
It's also based off of a graphic novel, or one of the stories they're doing. I can't remember the specific one, but they showed somebody put up the cover art of it, and he looks exactly like that character. So they're going with, apparently they are going with an Eric Draven story.
So you're saying that the guy who wrote the Crow comic book invented the look that became popular 30 years later?
James O'Barr, yes. I mean, that's not hard facts.
So Machine Gun Kelly and those two weird people from South Africa that have a band.
Oh, are you talking about D'Antwoord?
D'Antwoord.
Yeah, D'Antwoord or something like that.
Whatever. Yeah.
Chappie.
Chappie. No, I mean, go ahead, Dave.
I literally just did an episode on all of the Crow films that are available right now with our good buddy Birdman over at This Week in Geek. And I can tell you, as somebody who has seen Crow City of Angels, Crow Salvation, and Crow Wicked Prayer, if you think this is bad, you clearly haven't been paying attention to the series, which, I mean, I don't blame anybody not for doing that. But at the same time,
Crow's not a very good movie.
Shut up. But at the same time, I am more open-minded than your average moviegoer because I'm willing to give it a chance, and that's my point. Is,
I mean, Dave, but no shit, Dave.
Yes.
You're a massive movie fanatic.
I know.
So
yes.
am I.
I know.
I mean, I'll probably end up seeing the new Crow because you're gonna go.
I mean, I may not take you now because of that.
Sweet.
But no,
break.
My point being is that I'm just saying judge slowly. Because I'm not, I mean, Alex Proyas came out and said some shit against it too. And
that's the director of the first one.
Yeah.
I remember because I sent that to you and I was like, what does he know? He directed the least good Crow movie.
And Rochelle Davis, who played Sarah in the original movie, also came out and said some shit against it. So, I mean, it's no surprise that it's pissed people off.
What was that one that said it's Matthew Lillard playing Jared Leto, or it was Matthew Lillard playing there's a meme that called
Matthew
it
Lillard. It's Jared Leto's Joker played by Matthew Lillard or something along those lines. Like I've seen that meme too. But no, I mean, I'm not excited for this movie. I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now. I'm not excited for it. I will go see it. I will keep an open mind because I love the original Crow and I like most of the sequels too. But at the same time, like, I just feel like the look is not surprising at all, in my opinion.
I think that's kind of the thing.
Yeah.
Is people are like, oh, he does look like a guy at a gas station that you're afraid to stare at.
Basically, yes.
And I mean, Brandon Lee was a movie hooligan in the first Crow.
Yeah.
You could believe he was in with the wrong crowd, but you didn't believe he himself was bad.
That's true. But at that same time, too, though.
I mean, Skarsgård already looks weird.
Yeah.
It's already going to be hard to look at him and not think he's a monster.
It goes without saying that The Crow was a time at the 90s where there wasn't a lot of movies like that. There was those comic adaptations they were doing were weird. Like you had Steel, you had The Crow, you had...
Don't say Steel in the same breath as The Crow.
You
Steel
had The Shadow,
deserves respect.
You had The Rocketeer. You had a lot of odd superhero movies out at that time. And The Crow has a distinct look to it and style and soundtrack and all that, but it was of that time. And I think trying to do The Crow right now is a bold move, but at the same time too, is it really necessary?
To do it?
Yeah.
No,
it's not.
Clearly not.
No, it's not.
But my last point, and we'll get off of this, is Skarsgård literally is a weird looking guy. And I'm not trying to be mean. He's talented too. But like literally the movie Barbarian.
Yeah.
Literally, they cast him because you can't look at his weird eyes and not think he's dangerous.
Do you not remember me sitting next to you? Spoiler alert for Barbarian. Do you not remember me sitting next to you and I'm just like, I bet Skarsgård's in on it. And then he dies and then I'm like, oh, I guess I'm wrong.
You know, you could have so easily not spoiled that. And
That
still
happens in
gotten
the first
point.
20 minutes.
Oh, double spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert.
But, no, so I mean, I don't know. I think Skarsgård was a weird choice anyway.
I will end this discussion with this. It's coming whether we like it or not. And not everybody has to like it, and I totally get that. But at the same time, too, like, I saw a lot of people I've never even heard talk about The Crow or even mention The Crow and everything on Facebook and Twitter and whatnot talking about it. And I'm just like, why do you care?
You haven't been to a Hot Topic in a while, I guess.
I guess not. Actually, I really haven't. It's been a while.
Yeah, ever since you started wearing flannel.
So back to Bad Moon. Janet and Ted are still talking in the kitchen, and Janet says, Thor is 105 pounds, and Ted basically tells her, like, big deal, a gray wolf can get up to 210 pounds.
Which is true. Wolves can get pretty big.
So Janet shows concern for Ted, but he leaves the house and goes back to his camper. We see Thor post up outside Ted's camper as he emerges later with a pair of handcuffs, and he's in his sweat and his sweatshirts. Ted looks over to the sky, seeing the sun is going down, but he also sees that Thor is not moving. Like, Thor is stuck, and he's, like, trying to slowly approach him and shows his teeth. So then he just backs up and goes into the camper, and he peeks out of his window and just watches Thor. Thor doesn't move.
Yeah, Thor is posted right in front of his door watching him.
Yeah. So he goes back out, and Thor is slightly showing his teeth once again, and the two just have a staring contest. And then Ted slowly walks past Thor, not making a step towards the house. Thor goes to follow him, and Ted tells him to piss off as Thor growls before Ted calls Janet to call him back in. Later, Brett goes downstairs, lets Thor out after he barks, and Thor goes into the forest, finding the clothes, the handcuffs, and Ted, and now he reveals that he knows that Ted is the werewolf completely.
I like how you're talking about Thor like he's a human character. Like, and then he knows for sure. I think he knew from the smell.
I'll get to that when we get to the notes.
Wow,
Yes.
Dave.
I'm just gonna say, there's some notes coming at the end
Hateful
of this.
Dave, everybody.
So Thor makes his way back to the house, finding a wolfed out Ted approaching the house. He goes in, attacks him, and they fight for a little bit as Thor suffers some injuries. Janet kicks on the exterior lights, and the whole yard illuminates, and of course Ted runs off. She goes outside to find the injured Thor with some cuts on him, and Janet calls the sheriff as Thor goes into Brett's room and lays on him in a really sweet shot, just full on protecting him.
It was very, very sweet. Yeah, the dog just lays on the child to protect him.
So Janet goes to Ted's camper in the morning, the next day, finding him gone, but discovering Ted's journal and detailing that he's having blackouts. He's waking up covered in blood that's not his own. And then to add insult to injury, she finds bloody pictures of Marjorie's corpse, who was supposed to be in Seattle.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for the record, considering how Seattle's doing these days, that could be current photos.
So Janet reads that Ted believes that there is no hope, even though he's come to his family hoping for a cure, but he doesn't think there is a cure.
Yeah, he's hoping that maybe love would do something.
Protect him, yeah. So outside the camper, Ted returns wolfed out, and he begins to approach the camper, but Janet leaves with no sign of the creature around, but she makes her way back to the house, and we see the Flopsy has now returned holding a giant meat cleaver and a piece of steak.
Yes, and I'm assuming he wants to do something bad to Thor.
I think so.
So they, of course, do the silliest thing where he just does the whole, like, here, doggy, and then they do the werewolf stands up behind him. And he gets
eviscerated. He gets eviscerated. He gets his wrist slashed, his guts open, his throat gets slashed, and also, like, his hand is, like, sliced down the middle, too. It's pretty gruesome. And then he just gets launched back in the woods.
And that's the end of that guy.
That is the end of Flopsy. So the next morning, we see Ted return to the camper as the sheriff arrives, telling Janet the news of the Flopsy's body being found about a few hundred yards away from the house, and he suspects that maybe Thor attacked him.
Well, I mean, good dog.
Janet says there's no way, but the sheriff advises her that once a dog gets a taste for blood, it is not safe around the family, let alone kids anymore. So you may want to think about getting rid of him and finding a new pooch.
As the style guide of this program.
Lifestyle coach, Henrqiue Couto, ladies and gentlemen.
It is not true that when animals taste blood or human blood that they're changed forever. That is an old myth, and it sounds badass.
It does.
But don't let that help you. Don't let that change your opinion of your gerbil just because it bit your thumb one time. It's probably still just a gerbil, kids.
So she lets Thor outside and watches him go right towards the camper again. Ted exits and Thor and he stare each other down once again as Janet questions Ted about last night. He says he went for a run and Janet questions, you didn't hear anything, you didn't see anything. and watches him go right back into the camper again. And then Thor suddenly lunges, Ted goes to go back to the camper, and Thor suddenly lunges, sinking his teeth into Ted's arm. She gets him into the camper, telling him that she can't hold him back anymore. She pulls him back, and Janet locks Thor in a spare room in the house and calls animal control. As the next scene, we see her open the door. She takes Thor out, and then the animal control people get him, which were actually the animal trainers on the set, by the way.
That makes sense. Yeah, and it takes two guys with two, I forget what they're called, the poles.
The noose poles, I don't know.
But it took two of them, and all Thor wants is to get back into the house, to get back to the
family.
Kid.
Yeah, because now Brett comes out, and Janet has to hold him back, and Thor is just pulling these guys up to the house, and then that's when Ted walks out and just mockingly waves at Thor, just being like, hey, fuck you, dude.
Bye, buddy.
Gonna get the family now.
And well, speaking of a fuck you to Thor, after that's happened, he heads out to the backyard, takes a big whiz right on Thor's
the doghouse, and he just has this satisfying grin that he's just so evil at this point. So Ted makes his way to the backyard, pisses on the doghouse, and then at dinner that night, Brett is clearly upset. He's playing with his food, and Ted comments, sometimes it's genetics. Dogs just do that. And that's when Brett comments that Thor's pedigree, there's no sign of that. So why would
Thor's
he do
pedigree, that doesn't happen to them, which is also kind of a lie.
Also kind of a lie. Yeah, you're not wrong.
Yeah, I've known plenty of purebred dogs that have plenty of problems.
So we see Ted scratching at his wrist where Thor bit him, and that's when Janet comments that, he should really get it looked at a doctor, and he's like, no, it's fine. And she's like, well, you should at least get a tetanus shot. And he's like, I can give myself a tetanus shot, Janet.
Because he's a scientist.
Yep. So that's when she goes to excuse herself, and Brett is just playing with his food. So he tells Brett to come here, and he says, there'll be other dogs, don't worry about it. Sits him on his lap, and that's when Janet returns and says, Brett, it's time for bed. Ted gets up, and he's like, I guess I better get to bed too. And that's when she goes, hey, whatever happened to Marjorie? And he's like, I told you, Seattle. And then he leaves. So he's still sticking to that.
I'm going to start saying that about people I don't like. Seattle.
So
where is Dave anyway? Seattle.
Outside the house, we see it's a full moon as we see Brett's packed a bag with some pliers, and he sneaks out of his bedroom window and jumps off to the second story onto the ground and gets his bike. And that jump, he just rolls to the ground, and that's a pretty high jump for a kid, just saying.
Those young knees, they're ready.
They're ready. We see Ted exit the camper with his handcuffs and sweats, and he goes off into the woods, and inside, Janet sees him exit and follows him out into the woods, but not before she grabs a pistol, only to put it back on the shelf.
And not just any pistol. That thing was like a .357 Magnum.
It was .357. So Brett arrives at the pound, and he's trying to break the chain on the fence, but no luck, so he just decides to climb the fence. But before that, he shakes it, and security lights illuminate the pound as he climbs over the fence. Janet comes upon Ted in the forest as he's getting ready to chain himself to a tree, but he stops as he begins to smell her. And then he comments on that, I guess I don't need these anymore. You know the secret now. And we watch him begin to wolf out as his teeth grow sharp, his eyes grow yellow, and it's a pretty bitchin' scene.
I mean, in the theatrical cut, it's awesome. In the director's cut, we see some boring practical effects.
Ladies and gentlemen, there is the director's cut of Bad Moon, and there's the theatrical cut of Bad Moon. And
it's true.
The director's cut only came out when the Blu-ray got released, and that was because Eric Red, the director, never liked this transformation scene. He said that it was hokey, it was too slow, and I side with him on that one.
I like the original transformation.
Why?
Because the movie is not, I'm sorry, it's not timeless.
Yeah.
It makes it more nostalgic and fun. It makes me feel like I rented it at Hollywood Video.
I see that. I get that. But at the same time, too, the transformation's way quicker in the director's cut and way more to the point in regards of leaving out the bladder effects and the slow motion morph.
I love his transformation because it's
not bad.
It's so 90s.
It's 90s as fuck. I'm not gonna debate you on that.
It's fun. That's why I like it. And it's funny because I didn't have this opinion until you insisted we watch the old transformation before we started the show.
I figured you'd want to watch the old transformation.
And as soon as I watched the old transformation, I was like, oh no, I like that way more.
So Ted comments that he thought family could save him and that love would be the cure, but then he gives her crap for playing big sis. And, you made the mistake. You sent Thor to the pound. You should have listened to him. He was only trying to protect you.
Which is an interesting element of Pare's character because he's like very split personality.
Yeah.
He orchestrated Thor being taken away.
Yeah.
But then he's like, you shouldn't have let them take Thor away. Like he was trying to protect you and all this stuff. Like it's very like sometimes he wants to protect them, Ted does, and sometimes he wants to kill them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So Ted begins to laugh as his teeth grow sharp, his voice deepens, and Janet begins to freak out, realizing what's happening, and she takes off running as we cut back to Brett, who frees Thor from the pound. Thor goes over the fence, and we see Ted now also in full pursuit of Janet.
And Thor jumps over like a 10-foot tent.
He does. Well, I mean, he goes onto a car, goes up the car, and then jumps over the fence, and then he's just running down the street, dodging traffic, trying to get back to the house with Brett also behind him. And that's when Janet makes it back and home in time. She grabs the pistol. She's trying to load it as Ted just crashes through the front of the window, completely wolfed out, and chases her through the house. They come to a corner around the staircase. He knocks her down, and she ascends up the staircase, throwing a freaking clock in his way, which I forgot about. The grandfather clock, she just tips over.
This is such a great finale.
So before going into Brett's room, she finds his bed is empty as Ted crashes through the door. Thor returns home, racing up the steps, and leaps onto Ted's back as we have an awesome werewolf fight between Thor and Ted. They're hitting each other, blood spraying across the room, which I forgot about. Like all those blood spatters.
So much blood.
So much blood. The two fight going in, and Janet gets time to load the gun. Thor repeatedly attacks Ted as the two get into a bloody scuffle and continue it, and that's when Brett returns home as Thor is thrown across the room. Then Ted goes to grab Brett by the throat as Janet shouts, "Get the fuck off my son," and fires that gun, emptying it into Ted's back.
Bang, 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 bang. It's so good. It's so good.
So she runs out of bullets.
And it cannot be overstated. Mariel Hemingway is such a great actress.
Yes, she is.
And she really makes you believe everything she does. So does Michael Pare.
Yeah.
So, and it really is one of the things that keeps the movie from being hokey.
Yeah.
I think even with, I know you don't like that transformation, but even with the hokey transformation, it would just be like, wow, this is a 90s horror movie. I
don't hate the transformation.
Why do you hate the transformation?
I don't hate the transformation. I don't hate the transformation. The transformation is just, it delays that chase sequence that gets to this finale. That's my only problem. I know it's an 80-minute movie, and I'm sure it's like 81 minutes of the transformation scene, but...
You're full of shit.
Go to hell. So Ted rises up, and Thor lunges at him, knocking the two out the window. Bloodied and hurt, Ted goes back into the forest as Thor follows, and the next morning we see Thor is still on his trail, sniffing him out as he comes across a very bloodied and injured Ted who's hiding behind a tree. Thor cautiously approaches him, whining as Ted tells him to do it. Finish the job, and that's when Thor lunges at him, and we get a very wet sound effect of the attack.
Now, but before we move beyond that, that scene's really, really good.
No, it is 100%.
Because Pare, he is covered in like mortal wounds. Think every wound in The Best Friend in American Werewolf in London.
The nastiest ones,
giant
the neck.
gashes, but they're all so deep.
They're all deep, and they're all very gross.
Yeah. And his performance on top of that. Is so incredible because you really see that moment where he's like, I'm gonna lose. But then there's also this moment where I feel like the reason he's talking to Thor like that is almost because he's made his full transformation to being a part of the natural order.
Yeah.
So in his mind, he's like, you won. Kill me.
Well, and I also think too, this is one question I have. So when she empties that gun into his back, do the bullets stay inside his body, or do they fall out when he goes back into human?
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. Because it's like my question is, does he know he's gonna die, so he just wants to get it over with, or is he just completely done fighting because Thor protected the family?
He knows that if he transforms again,
Thor's gonna kill him.
Yeah. And he knows that once he transforms, he can't because he's not intellectual once he's the wolf.
Yeah.
So he'd rather just die on his own terms, is what I would think.
So that is when we see back at the house that we see workers are repairing the smashed window. Janet pets Thor, telling him how he saved the family and what a good dog he is. She looks away, and then suddenly Thor morphs into a werewolf and growls at her. Janet shoots up awake.
Full-blown jump scare.
Janet shoots up awake, revealing a nightmare as she and Brett pet Thor as the camera pans out. And that, my friends, is 1996's Bad Moon.
And it does not have that song.
No, it doesn't. I know. I always want that song to be there.
$7 million. You couldn't get that song?
Guess not.
I guess not. I wonder what they spent all that money on. Sincerely.
The morphing scene.
Nice.
Probably.
Money well spent.
Probably the morphing and probably a lot of the scenery shots.
Well, I mean,
are those expensive?
Not once you're already doing them. Once you rent the helicopter, you just do them and do them and do them.
That makes sense.
I mean, but in the days before drones. But I mean, I'm sure Mariel Hemingway and Michael Pare got paid very well.
Yeah.
I bet you they had a ton of time to film. I know for a fact they shot way more effects than they used.
Yep.
So, I mean, I don't know. But I am curious because $7 million is just so much money for for a small theatrical movie. You would think it would be more like $2 million.
Well, I'm sure they cleaned up at the box office, right? This made a killing, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure.
So released in November 1st, on November 1st of 1996, this was a $7 million budget movie, and the box office was $1.1 million.
Now, I'm not a doctor. But is that less?
That is very less.
Okay. Don't want to get too scientific.
No,
now.
not at all. So this was shot in Anmore and Vancouver, Canada. Surprise, surprise.
Canada. You got to say your ancestral homeland correctly.
Shut up. So you want to hear some fun facts about the movie?
Of course not.
Too bad. So changes from the novel to screen included a big change to the makeup of the family. In the novel, it was 2 parents and 3 children, plus the dog, who sees the family as his pack and must be defended at all costs. The dog's perceptions of events are treated in great details, as in the relationship of Thor he has with his family. This adds a touch of confusion as to whether the werewolf is a member who he must be respected, or if it's actual predator that he has to defend against.
I like that, and I can see how that would not translate on screen, so you just skip it, but in the book it would.
Well, and especially because the book is told through POV of Thor, and while the film drops that approach, several dogs were used in the film, each with various skills, but the hero dog is one used for close-ups and general scenes and took months to find. Eric Red was shown multiple dogs, but a photo of an untrained German Shepherd caused him to state he knew instantly that he found his Thor. The 3 dogs were Primo, who was using all the close-ups and did most of the work, Decca, an older female German Shepherd used for over-the-shoulder shots or if Thor was lying down, and there was a Russian border German Shepherd attack dog and a mini Shepherd that were employed in the final fight sequence.
Nice.
Yeah.
No, that's great. And
What?
I'm just laughing at at the whole situation of being like, that's the dog.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's untrained.
Yeah,
that's
the
the
dog.
It's like finding the lead actor of your big movie at the grocery store.
So Eric Red's only difference to the director's cut is the editing of the transformation sequence. He cut it due to poor visual effects, stating he's always hated that scene for over 2 decades and says fans have been complaining about it to him for just as long.
Just you.
I've never met Eric Red. I would love to. The film's animal trainers, like I said, play the animal control officers in the film. Michael Biehn and Robert Patrick lobbied for the role of Ted, but Red chose Pare because of the power he has as an actor. Dog trainers also shared that Pare's comfort performing with the K-9 co-star reminded him of Jim Belushi on the set of K-9. They quote as, along with Roy Scheider and Famke Jensen, Michael Pare is one of the best experiences I've had with a star as a director.
So, and I want to mention, nothing against Michael Biehn or Robert Patrick.
Yeah.
They're both very talented actors, but yet Michael Pare has so much more intensity.
I think so too, because
he's so subtle.
I was thinking about Patrick, but I feel like Patrick would just play psychotic well. His nice guy, he does good as nice guys, but he's so good at playing a villain.
Well, I think it's kind of like you're expecting Robert Patrick to have a secret.
Yeah.
And Pare is much more of a blank slate.
Yeah.
You know, we were just making jokes about Skarsgård.
Yeah.
How he really has a look that makes it hard to give him, he's not going to be a romantic lead. I'm sorry. He just is not.
He could play Thor in this. Skarsgård.
Jesus, David, that's mean. I'm trying to be nice for once.
I was just joking. I love Skarsgård.
No, he means it. He means it, everybody.
It just makes me think of BoJack Horseman when Wallace Shawn plays BoJack in the BoJack story. Oh, yeah. He just has the giant BoJack head on.
But but I think Michael Pare was really the best actor for the job.
He was, and I think going back to Robert Patrick real quick, just to get off topic real quick, Henrqiue and I several years ago went down a rabbit hole with Robert Patrick of his 90s lesser known movies, and there are 2 that I want to mention real quick before we get out of here. One is Rogue Force, is a movie that he did with Michael Rooker, where Robert Patrick plays a rogue SWAT team that is basically going after criminals that get out of the justice system, and Rooker is one of the detectives that's hired to investigate the case. Super good thriller, super dark.
Yeah, really fun, though.
The other one, which if you're an action junkie, you need to see Zero Tolerance.
Yes!
Zero Tolerance is the story of Robert Patrick, who's a cop, if I remember correctly, and something happens to where one of his old cronies gets released and goes after his family and basically murders the family. And that's when he decides to take revenge, go off the force, and you have not seen a bonkers action film until you've seen Zero Tolerance.
It is truly a sight to behold. I could not agree more.
The scene when he's going down Sunset Strip and just has the shotguns and just cars are blowing up around him for no reason. Pure cinema. Pure cinema. So yeah.
Pure cinema.
Make sure you check out Robert Patrick's 90s films. You will not be disappointed. Wrapping us up, Red felt the movie should open with a bang. That's why the opening is so heavy with the sex and the gore.
Well, and the original one was even more so.
Even more so, yeah. Hoping to avoid a repeat of earlier issues, Eric Red resorted to psychological trips during filming on the final fight sequence, forcing Hemingway to do take after take, yelling for her to play it bigger until she was absolutely exhausted and she hated my guts, as he says, getting so angry at me personally that tears and rage finally came out and we got it on camera. Eric Red's kind of notorious for being fucking nuts.
I mean, that's like directors do that. I think that, you can only do that with an actor that understands.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the downside of that we saw with Shelley Duvall, unfortunately, in The Shining with Kubrick.
Well, Kubrick was a complete monster.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he really did not care about anything other than what he wanted on film.
You've seen the behind-the-scenes footage, right?
Yeah, it's terrifying.
Oh, my God, dude.
No, I can't imagine Eric Red was even a fifth.
Yeah, of Kubrick. That's fair.
Yeah, no way.
Morgan Creek opened the film after Halloween, spent almost nothing on marketing, so Red was not surprised when it failed to find an audience in theaters, but he's happy that a fan base has grown around it in the years. And finally, 2 different stunt women were used for the stand-ins of Marjorie during the opening werewolf attack. Both stunt girls were nude. The first was attached to a ratchet device designed to yank her from the tent and give the impression of real force and power. The second stunt performer was held aloft in a harness device to simulate being held by a werewolf.
I love any time you get to simulate being held by a werewolf.
I mean, it's so romantic.
So,
as we like to wrap up every show, we like to offer a couple recommendations.
Well, you didn't even give the...
Oh, we didn't give a rating. My apologies.
The rate... Almost every week, you forget the rating, which is your idea.
Well, I know. But also at the same time, I get excited. So can you blame me? What are your final thoughts on Bad Moon?
You want me to give mine?
Go.
Well, I think that it is... I'm going to call it a rent it.
That's what I called it.
But I was close to giving it a stream it.
Okay.
But I think if you love horror movies, if you've ever liked a werewolf movie, you're going to dig this one. But I will say, side note, if you're a massive, and I mean massive dog lover, then it's an own it.
Yeah.
Because this is one of the few horror movies that is really literally about the bond of family with a dog.
Absolutely.
So if you love dogs like immensely, and many people do, I love dogs quite a bit, then I think it makes the movie immensely more valuable.
I agree. Rent it for me as well. I think it's an underrated and underseen gem, not just for werewolf movies, but horror in general. I think you have a very strong cast here, even if it's a simple cast, and a great dog actor that makes the finale even more intense and satisfying, plus the opening of the film that you just won't forget.
Yeah, I would agree.
So recommendations, I'm going to go with Late Phases, Night of the Wolf from 2014. When a deadly beast attack from a forest, it is up to a grizzled veteran to uncover what the residents of a secluded retirement community are hiding. Late Phases was on streaming for I think several years when it first got released in the early 2010s. You recommended it to me.
Yeah, I know.
And
I love that movie.
I watched it and was just completely blown away. And again, another one that nobody really talks about.
I mean, I feel like it's gotten some of its due. I mean, it was part of the Larry Fessden world.
Yeah.
It had really strong distribution when it came out.
I think what I love about Late Phases, too, is that it's both a slow burn, but also you're never bored.
No. Well, it's a very intense movie.
Yeah. And second recommendation, I'm going to give Dark Night of the Scarecrow from 1981. In a small southern town, 4 vigilantes wrongfully execute a mentally challenged man, but after the court sets them free, mysterious accidents begin to kill them off one by one.
Well, I do love Dark Night of the Scarecrow. Odd choice.
I was going for more of a small town feel and also mysterious deaths.
Okay. Yeah. Well, my recs are simple.
Okay.
Silver Bullet is number 1.
Absolutely.
That way you get all the werewolf fun and you get even more of the silly kind of nostalgia era stuff. And then my second recommendation is Wolf.
Wolf is good.
With
Jack Nicholson and
because
Michelle Pfeiffer,
that movie's funny, fun, and scary.
And scary, yeah.
And again, that one has the big fat 90s feel.
Well, and you also have Jack Nicholson marking his territory by pissing on James Spader while they're in the bathroom.
It's the best.
I love that movie. God,
no,
that
movie's
so much
so
fun.
good. So those are my recs.
Those are your recs. Awesome. That is that is basically what we've got for this week. Do you want to talk about next week?
Jeez, you're so bad at transitions.
What?
It's fine. I'll fix it in post. You suck.
Shut up. I'm not gonna fix it in post.
How about I'll let you edit the shows from now on.
Whatever.
Huh? You can do that. You got hands. Well, what do we got coming next week?
We are going to be going to the 90s once again with Wayne's World.
And that means I'll finally give
the story.
The story. I never gave that on the air, did I?
No, you did not. You said you would save it for that episode, so I'm excited.
So I'll give the story about how Dayton, Ohio could potentially be directly related to the creation of Wayne's World.
Cannot wait to hear that.
So I gave you a little taste of
You
what
gave me a
it
little
is,
taste,
but yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But that's like a legit urban legend that I heard firsthand. I didn't hear it from like 5 other people.
Yeah.
I heard it like directly from people who are positive it happened.
Ooh.
So
I can't wait for that.
But no, so Wayne's World, that'll be a super fun one. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to that. I'm still recovering from my movie shoot experience.
It's all good, brother. It's all good.
So, but no, make sure you guys, we really appreciate the emails we've been getting, which by the way, actually I'll have it right here.
Oh, you have an email.
We got an email from our buddy, let's see, Derek
Okay.
Smith, my buddy Derek, who, we've been friends for a while, but
Yeah.
he seems to really be digging Do You Even Movie.
Awesome.
He commented on the Little Giants episode. He's the one who made the fun
The
fact.
meme, yeah.
Still doesn't have his yellow belt. Yeah.
Thanks for that.
That's the stuff. But he also wrote in after that, he said, also, Parenthood is one of my all-time favorites.
Yeah.
Definitely hope y'all check it out. If not for the podcast, just for shiggles. Incredible writing and one of the best ensemble casts. I think we could probably put that in
It's
there.
safe to say that's coming to the show because the fact that you haven't seen it, this is another one that I can show you, but also you love Steve Martin. So
I do.
This is Steve Martin and a hugely stacked cast.
Oh. So
multiple
just
storylines.
huge breasts.
Rick Moranis is back.
Hey, I love
Yeah.
Rick Moranis. So, okay. Well, no, we'll have to put that on the docket
Hell
in the future. And if you guys want to email us, you can send us an email at doyouevenmoviepod@gmail.com, or you can contact us through doyouevenmovie.com. Also want to mention liking the video if you're watching this on YouTube helps immensely. Leaving a comment helps even more.
Absolutely.
We read everything you guys send in,
We
of
do.
course. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, please, sincerely, I beg of you, leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify because it helps
Helps a
massively.
lot. Yes.
But that's just about all I've got. What about you?
All right, you can find us over at Instagram and TikTok at Do You Even Movie Pod. You can also find us on X and Facebook at Do You Even Movie Podcast. And make sure you check us out. We've got a lot of fun clips on TikTok. And also, if you have any suggestions, comments, or just want to tell us something in general, we, like Henrik said, read all that stuff. So
Yeah.
make sure you let us know, drop us a line.
Yeah, get a hold of us at doyouevenmoviepod@gmail.com. So, well, I guess that is it
That
for this
is
week.
it.
So everybody, take good care of your doggies.
Yes.
And don't trust your brother.
No, don't trust your brother at all.
That's the moral of the story.
That'll do it.
So we'll see you all next Tuesday.
See you next Tuesday.
Ah.